What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing you a Scareclaw Go Second profile. Now this is one of the few decks in the Megatins that I really wanted to build. I'm still missing a couple of cards, but they're all relatively cheap, and I was going to make it a budget build, but then the ban list kind of messed that up because you really want to be playing Fenrir. That being said, if you do want to see a budget build of the deck, which will now minus Fenrir, I will be more than happy to bring it to you. Just get the video above 50 likes in the first 24 hours, and I'll be more than happy to put it together. So with all of that out of the way, I'm going to dive headfirst into the profile, show you what we've got, and explain why we've got it. So we're going to start off with triple right cart. Now this is actually a little bit questionable because you could arguably play it at less. The idea is you just want to get to a Scareclaw monster. Scareclaw monster gets you into your Link 1, into Light Heart. Light Heart then gets you the Field Spell then gets you into right cart. Arguably as well, if you were to play this at less, like play at 1, you'd then be relying on its normal summon effect a lot less. And you'd actually be using it more so as special summon fodder, get a draw, get a search, go from there, which could then push you to wanting to play the adventure package. So it's entirely up to you on that one. Personally, I've kind of gone with 3 at the moment because I haven't really decided on, number one, there isn't really the space for the adventure package, and I don't really see the need of not playing this at 3 as of yet. For the rest of the Scareclaws, I'm also maxing out on those. This is a Go Second build, so you want to be able to see these as much as possible, and each of them gives you a different effect. In my opinion, Astra is probably the best one because this will allow you to gain attacks up to number of defense with some Scareclaw monsters you control. So you can get up to like 3 attacks, which is absolutely insane. Then of course we got Ballon. Now Ballon is the one that allows you to do piercing damage, which is something that this deck wanted to focus on, or what I wanted to make this deck focus on, and that's why we are maining Book of Eclipse as well. So the idea behind Book of Eclipse is it's a great Go Second card. Yes, if your opponent has Ash Blossom, they can stop it, but the only other thing you could look at would be the Swords Concealing Light. And even then, I don't think it's that great of a card. I quite like the quick effect of Book of Eclipse. And the idea is I want to put all of my opponent's monsters to defense face down, and then I'm going to be able to get additional battles and an additional piercing damage. And that's just going to help you ultimately push for game, if not clear the board off and then swing in for game. We've then got Triple Arco. Now, obviously, this one allows you to gain 300 attack for each defensive monster you control, which is really kind of nice because this is going to allow your Tri-Heart to be an absolute fat stat boss monster with piercing as well, which is absolutely important. Then got the one Visa Starfrost. I'm still currently missing that card. That's the one thing I am waiting to turn up. But the reason I've put that in this deck is because technically it can act as an extender. It could unlock synchro plays if you wanted to go down that route. I've not decided to go down that route because you could also add in Rev Synchrons. I've kind of gone for a very aggressive route. And the reason that you'd actually want Starfrost in here is because it then unlocks the ability to get into Visa's Astrolaud. And Astrolaud is just an insane powerhouse on its own. So going second is just a really important card. And even then, it sits at like £8, so it still fits within the budget kind of requirements of what you wanted to do with this deck. Then the card that was budget for about 5 minutes and now isn't, is of course Triple Kashtira Fenrir. Now obviously, when I say budget, it was sitting at around about £8. You could have swiped these up at £8 the second the tins dropped, and then after the fact, it went up in price. Obviously the ban list changed it, everyone thought it was going to get banned, they were like, oh, I'm not going to go too heavy on the Fenrirs, and then it was revealed it wasn't getting banned, and now everyone's like, grab the Fenrirs. The reason Fenrir is so important is it does get you into the Scareclaw Kashtira. So I suppose without Fenrir, you're probably going to be playing the Kashtira at maybe 3, depending on the type of playstyle you want to go for. But of course, Fenrir being an absolute powerhouse on his own, searches you out Kashtira Scareclaw. Scareclaw is then a free extender, attack and defense. It's one of the ones that you don't really care when you've got your Tri-Heart on the board, because with Tri-Heart on the board, everything goes to defense, but then your Scareclaw Kashtira is like J-chill in there going, alright, whatever, I've got 2600 defense, I'm going to still be able to attack, and it is insanely important. It does also make me want to consider, because I quite like the idea of other cards that can attack in defense. So you're looking at stuff like your Super Heavy Samurais. So that would be something that would be really kind of cool if you did go down a Synchro version of this deck, which I might look into for the budget one, is where you make the Synchro level 12 Super Heavy Samurai, which is like 4k defense, which is absolutely insane, which would be really funny actually. So I might look into that. Maybe play a very small Super Heavy Samurai engine. Anyway, the last monster we play is the one Pankratops. Like, go second, summon down Pankratops, deals with any floodgates you might need to deal with. Can be a very easy 1-for-1 trade with one of your opponent's monsters, if not a 2-for-1 trade, because if you can summon this down, and let's say your opponent's got 2 negates on the board, one of them is less than 2600, you go Pankratops, kill that one with 2600, then activate Pankratops to try and get rid of the other negate, and straight away your opponent is then forced to negate this, otherwise they'll lose that monster. And you're like, okay, cool, main phase 2, I can build up my board. Obviously, that's something you don't really want to be doing. He's mainly in here as a free 2600 body before you get into Tryhard, and the ability to just pop and pop to deal with a floodgate or something that might try and stop the Tryhard getting to the board. Then, of course, for the spells, Triple Book of Eclipse. I personally feel that when you're going for piercing battle damage off the back of something like Tryhard, Book of Eclipse is insanely important. I know it's less relevant now with the new ban list, kind of getting rid of Riceheart, but I still feel there are plenty of decks out there that are very susceptible to something like Book of Eclipse. And if you play it correctly, using it as a defensive option as well can really throw your opponent off their plays, especially if you stop them getting into their link plays, or if they need to have a specific face-up monster on the board in order to gain an additional effect. One thing you also need to remember is, for example, something against the Unchained matchup is when they get to their link monsters, obviously you can't link with face down monsters. So if they're like kind of pushing to try and use one of their link effects, if you Book of Eclipse, even though it hits your own monsters, they then can't link with them. Now obviously that's on an example when you don't leave Tryhard on the board because that's now going face down, but it can still be a very interesting interaction that might pop up. We've got 2 Primitive Planet Reichphobia and the 1 Pressure Planet. Now you can, again, this is probably less so in the budget version, I still feel, I can't remember what these are. I think they're like 20-25 quid, so you might as well just get a Fenrir anyway. This can very easily, like you can add a Terraform into this build. If you do go down the Synchro version that does involve the Ancient Fairy Dragon and Rose Dragon and everything else like that, then this becomes a little bit more prominent. But the idea of being able to get this and then boost all of your monsters as well can still be very, very important. 2 Arrival, so not once per turn Monster Reborn. Rotor, now obviously this technically acts as a 4th copy of right cart, but if you wanted to and you're like, okay, I'm cutting my right cart down by 1, you could do and just leave the reinforcements in, but then you're playing towards draw a little bit more. 1 Call by the Grave to kind of deal with specific hand traps that is going to stop you building your OTK board. So since budget went out the window, why not? Let's add in some thrusts with a Talent, a Lightning Storm, and a Dark Hole. Now a lot of people are going to be like, why have you got the Dark Hole in there? Quite honestly, sometimes your opponent will give you a monster that can lock you down, or there'll be times when your opponent's like, okay, cool, I've put monster on the board, you can't Lightning Storm me, and you go, okay, cool, Dark Hole, clear everything, then Lightning Storm. And of course you can use Raigeki and other stuff as well, but I quite like the idea of Dark Hole just being a way to kind of clear a board off and go again. I'm going second, so Raigeki, as good as it is, sometimes Dark Hole can help you with those odd scenarios where they give you something or they try and slow you down. Because even if they give you any card, like a token or something like that, it will stop your Fenrir summon down, which can be quite annoying. 2 Forbidden Droplet, like the format's now wide open for negates. I feel this is definitely an OTK version of Scareclaw. This is 100% better than Dark Ruler, because if you Dark Ruler, you're not going to finish the game off that turn. So, Droplet being able to send cards as well, especially with Tryhard just flooding the board with your own monsters. There might be a time where you have to negate one of your opponent's monsters and send the ones that are in defense. That's absolutely fine. It's not ideal, but sometimes it happens. Other than that, just being able to go, okay, normal summon something like Right Cart, they chain an effect to negate it, you can chain Droplet to dodge it, everything else like that. Droplet's just so powerful. And then because we're going second, we've got the 1 defanging. Now, obviously, if you're going first, that's when you're going to start looking into Slash probably a little bit more. And it's also where I would highly advise you putting back in the Twin Saw. Like I said, I've built this to be very aggressive, so I don't really want to have those points where it's like, okay, I need a trap card to follow back up on. I'm going very aggressive, and if I need a card to set during my opponent's turn, that's where Eclipse and Droplets come into play. So for those of you unfamiliar with defanging, your opponent cannot target Scareclaw Link monsters or Starfrost you control with card effects. Also, they cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. You banish any monster destroyed by battle with a Scareclaw Link monster or a Visas Starfrost you control, and you can banish 1 Scareclaw Link monster from your field or graveyard, target 1 card your opponent controls, and destroy it. You can only use this effect once per turn. So the idea is, once you kind of go through 2, you can go through 2 Tri-Hearts in a turn, you can go through 2 Light Hearts in a turn as well, so you can very easily just banish those, pop a card, good to rock and roll. Triple Imperm, and then I went with double Super Poly. You don't have to go with Super Poly at all, it really does come down to local environment. I just wanted a card that allowed me to break a board without needing to, like, It allowed me to break an opponent's board without them being able to respond, and gave me the ability to push it as an aggressive option. Now, either I use it as fodder to get into Tryhard, because I know Tryhard's going to shift everything to defense, and that's where Garura is going to be more important because it gives you that protection. Or, of course, I can go into Mud Dragon, and Mud Dragon can then protect all of these from being targeted, which is just as important and effective. You can see there's very minimum hand traps in here, and that is purely because it's built on the sense of, like, ideally I don't want you to build whatever you can build, but it's one of the ones where it's like, okay, well, I don't mind you building a board because I'm playing cards that will, on a success rate, be able to pick that board apart, break it down, rather than trying to go hand trap at the right time to hope that you don't have every other card in hand. I'm quite happy for them to put everything they've got onto the board, and then it's my chance to go, right, okay, activate this, attempt to negate, activate this, attempt to break, go from there. For the extra deck, we are going to go with Triple Tryhard. Again, I'm still waiting on my third copy of that one. So at the moment, we've only got 2, but we'd definitely be playing 3, as that is your ideal boss monster. You can go through 2 in a turn just because its effects are not hard once per turn. Really, really nice. But it really does come down to a personal preference if you wanted to change up the extra deck a little bit more. But sometimes a lot of people will also play 3 Lightheart rather than 2. I quite like 2 in this aggressive option because the idea is I don't want the game or the one duel, like game 1, to last more than like 2 turns each at max. So I don't want to be burning through all of my Lighthearts, so I have the space to play Super Poly Targets and other generic cards that can help break and pick a board apart. Speaking of generic cards, I am playing the one Sky Striker Ace Azalea. Again, the reason for this is it's one of the ones that a lot of people do not expect for starters, and the fact that it could just kind of pick cards apart during the battle phase and just on summon is really, really important. You've got a decent chunk of spells to kind of get to the graveyard, and without banishing them early doors, because the only one you're going to really banish is your rival, you're still going to be able to make this card as effective as possible. If you're on a budget, that will of course be Domper, and that is Donna, sorry, not Domper is one of the main deck ones, Donna rather than Azalea just as an option. Phoenix, Unicorn, Access Code, and then Underworld Goddess, and then Astrolaud. Just waiting to pick up my copy of that one. And then for your Super Poly Targets, you've got your Starving Venom, your Mud Dragon, Garura. And the last card, which I thought was really kind of cool, and I saw this on Your Move, TCG. So this was a deck profile from Cullen H, and he played this, and I was like, oh, that's really kind of cool. Because the idea is it's generic rank 3, and then when you make it, you have the ability that when your opponent activates a monster effect, you get a quick effect to detach 2 materials from this card, both players draw a card. This will then give you the ability to play around the Nibiru. If that is something you're worried about, games 2 or 3, and you're like, okay, well, my opponent now knows that one of the weaknesses of Scareclaw is that it just keeps summoning and summoning without setting up a negate, and you're on a bit of a budget because you can't go for something like Baron or Rev Synchrons or anything like that, then Gossip Shadow is just one of them ones where you're special summoning your lower level Scareclaws, so your Astra, your Belong, and your Crow quite a lot. So you just go, okay, cool, rank 3, protect this, and then you'll still have the ability. So as long as you've special summoned these down, and these can all be special summoned down to a main monster zone adjacent to a Scareclaw monster you control, and that's where Right Cart comes into play, because then Right Cart can just be your normal summon, search you out your monster reborn, special summon, and then you can overlay, make this, and then you've got the ability to extend into Lightheart. Lightheart gets you the field spell, gets you the other one you haven't special summoned yet, and then you can keep linking off into those, climbing all the way up to get you into your your Tryhard as well. So I thought it was kind of a cool tech idea. You could very easily add a Zeus into the extra deck if you wanted to as well. There's a lot of flexibility. Obviously, I chose to go with Super Poly, which adapted the extra deck a little bit. If you go for Rev Synchron, you adapt the extra deck a little bit more as well. I just really liked the concept of Scareclaws when it first came out. I tried to build it, but I never really got all of the pieces. And then the prices just went up, and I was like, it's a deck that I wanted to play for fun. I didn't want to invest heavily into it. And now the reprints have happened. The deck's just a little bit easier for me to pick up. And I was able to pick up pretty much all of the main deck stuff for like a $5. That's how crazy it is. Like Right Cart, I think I pulled some from my tins, and then they were only like £2 to £3 each when I picked them up. And then the Lighthearts and Tryhearts were only £1 each, which is crazy. So I'm going to take that. And then the Astrolaud is like £8, and Visas was like £7. But even that's come down in price as well, depending on where you're trying to pick them up from. Anyway, that's it for the Scareclaw build. I know quite a few of you wanted to see what the build was looking like. Well, here it is. I'm definitely enjoying it. I like the concept of it, and I like the idea that there's still more to be tweaked and to be changed with the deck. And that's what makes it so cool, is it doesn't become stagnant. It's very cool to kind of change it up, change the strategies up, adapt it for your local environment, and have a lot of fun with it for now. Especially when the format is going to be blown wide open on the 25th, and that will then pretty much open up the door for like, okay, cool. Everyone can start experimenting now. These are going to be a little bit more accessible. And I do like the idea of playing Go second OTK decks, even though they're a little bit riskier. They just have like a bit more fun when your opponent spent like 15 minutes setting up this board and you just play like 1 or 2 cards, break it and then OTK them. They're like, oh, well, I just wasted my time. And that's what's really kind of cool. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. If you do have any questions at all, by all means, please put them in the comments down below. I will be more than happy to answer them for you. But for now, as absolutely always, stay safe and, of course, happy dueling.